Officially welcome everyone. Thank you for joining and thank you especially for being on time. And on behalf of the Certificate of Sephardic Ancestry, on behalf of Jewish Unity Through Diversity, Kulanu, Reconnectar, Genie Milgrom, and just common good. Thank you all for being here today. We're excited to talk. Please do continue to put into the chat your questions, your comments. This really should be an interactive. We are very excited this session to partner with Kulanu. And we have with us Molly Levine from Kulanu. I'm going to let her introduce herself for a moment, or Kulanu for a moment.
Yes, thank you very much. Hi, my name is Molly Levine. I'm the executive director of Kulanu. So Kulanu works with Jewish communities. We have partner communities in 33 different countries, and we are blessed to have Genie Milgrom serve as our director of Anusim. So everyone sees the great work that Genie's been doing with the communities there, but we also have communities in Africa and Asia as well that we work with and partner for different needs. Sometimes there's communities that need latrines, and other times we're sending a Torah or a visiting rabbi. So there's lots of need around the world. So we're happy to help out if we can.
And as Molly just mentioned, if you have questions about that,
I want to thank Drora and I want to thank Molly both for co-sponsoring this. And we do a lot of work with Kulanu. As a matter of fact, we're waiting now for a Torah to go down to Guayaquil, Ecuador. And I'm hoping that Molly will find that soon, hint, hint. But it's amazing work. We work day in and day out. This is not something that we get together once every so often for a Zoom. All of us together are working together every single day. We're practically in contact. So thank you for being here.
And now you have a taste also for what Genie does, because that's a small percentage of what she does, and she's in touch every day. She also has a wonderful database. Anybody who's looking for genealogy online and it goes through the Iberian Peninsula, please make sure to start there, look through there. It's being updated, I believe, daily also. I don't know how Genie has time for all of this, but it is an amazing website, and you will definitely get the link in the follow-up email. And as I mentioned, this is part of our Certificate of Sephardic Ancestry, which I have been so blessed to partner with Genie on this, which is her initiative. And I'm happy to be along for the ride, because we have had so much positive feedback about people who are looking for their roots, as Genie found her roots with 22 grandmothers. Did I get it right this time?
Yes,
22.
yes.
22 grandmothers. Other people definitely have not found the same depth and breadth of manuscripts and information, but it helps to have this connection and to understand your connection. And so at Jewish Unity Through Diversity, we've been very proud to be co-sponsoring this and co-hosting this. And so anybody who's looking for your own heritage based on the Iberian Peninsula, reach out, be in touch. But we didn't come to talk about all that today, although it's important. We came to speak about the movie. And like I said, this is an open question and answer. I would love to have your questions. Obviously, I have what I want to know about the movie as well. And there are things that I think need to be said, but I will be monitoring the chat and Q&A. So please do put questions into either one, and we'll begin. I hope most of you have seen the movie, so I'm not going to do a really formal introduction of Genie, because I think that's more than any formal introduction is going to be, unless there's something we missed. I'm sure it'll come up in the discussion. But let's start with, why make this movie in the first place? What drove you to make it?
Well, it was very long in coming. Ever since I came out with my story back in 2010, 2011, people were, this is a movie, this is a movie, this is a movie. And I was like, yeah, okay. But then as I started getting into this, and especially getting into the digitization, which is pretty much the core of my work today, the digitization so people can find their ancestors, I saw that there was like no one behind me. There's like, you would think that there would be a bevy of people that are researching, academics that are looking, that are jumping, that are going. And at the time, there are a smattering of people with my roots, meaning going all the way back and returning to the Jewish people, you know, the whole enchilada. But no one was really recording it. People were recording communities, people were recording the lost tribe in Brazil. And I felt that it was important to be able to give a voice to those people that were afraid to come out and talk about this because obviously our families are never usually not on board. So I thought that maybe if I was the first, other people would come and give their stories over too. And also just comes a time that I've written several books. I keep writing books. I keep talking overseas. I talk as much as I can, but it needed to have like a stronger let's say, memory of my history, at least for, you know, perpetuity, hopefully.
Yeah, and I
And
think that it
I ain't
definitely.
getting any younger.
No, but also it's a story that needed to be told and needed to be seen, and there's definitely something with the engagement when you actually hear people talking and see people talking. And that's why we're doing this now as well. So let's take a step back because I have had questions to me personally. What are Bnei Anusim and what's unique about them?
So B'nai Anusim it's a Hebrew term and it means children of the forced. We are not today B'nai Anusim. I guess our ancestors would have been. We are descendants of the B'nai Anusim, the people that were forced. So this is what they're called. People like me are called when using a term in Israel in Hebrew. It used to be called Marranos. We don't use the term Marrano or Marrano in Spanish because it means pig. So it's just something that, you know, it's derogatory. We try not to go there. Academically, in all academic journals, they're called New Christians. Because there were the old Christians, people that were always Christian, and then the people that became Christian via this mechanism that I did as well, you know, going underground. And so if you look at Inquisition records, it'll say this person is a half a new Christian, a half old Christian, a quarter new Christian. And so it's a big term in academia. And then grew the term of crypto Jews, which means hidden Jews. And mistakenly, people call us crypto Jews. I'm not a hidden Jew. I'm a descendant of a crypto Jew. And finally, the last term used is a converso. But a converso is less used because a converso can be somebody that converted to Muslim or converted to something else. So basically, I use the term mostly crypto Jew.
Thank you. And that's an important distinction. When you say new Christians, though, that can also be those that actually did convert,
Right,
that didn't keep
right,
their hidden religion. So that's the distinction of the
correct.
Bnei Anusim, the children of those that were forced.
It's still used a lot in Portugal. I mean, you see people, you know, were you new Christian? So that term was a lot used in Portugal. I'd say more than Spain practically. So it's still a used term, but more for academia.
Thank you. And I'm going to build on that for a question that came in. Why is there a misconception that Bnei Anusim is not real and that they never, well, not that they never came to America, but that it's not a real concept?
So I've struggled with this personally because um, by Jewish law, by halacha, if you follow a maternal lineage and you prove that there is a mother after grandmother, uh, going all the way back to wherever it is that you find your Jewish relative. For me, it was at the 15th grandmother. I went back 22. So by Jewish law, you're a Jew. So there are people that don't believe that it carries on that long. So there's a misconception that we're not really Jews and we should have to convert and things like that. And I think that it's because some people can't fathom the actual factual finding of documents. In other words, they're used to, is your family Jewish? Yeah, let me take a picture of this grave in Poland, and you'll see the Stars of David, and it'll say, son of, Elimelech, and blah. So this is an Ashkenaz way that you trace your lineage. And then the people that left after the Inquisition, because my people stayed, but the people that left, then they went to Morocco and they went to Turkey, they went to, the whole Ottoman Empire. And then those people are like, did they really leave? They blended so much with Arabs. So it's not just a misconception about the Bnei Anusim, it's a misconception, I think, about Sephardim as a whole. And there's always been that, divisiveness in the Jewish people, between the Sephardim and the Mizrahi and the Ashkenaz. But I think that now that, the Bnei Anusim came on board, it's like, okay, we don't want to deal with you, is more the way that I see it. Like, it's too much. We got enough, going on. And I think that there's not enough of us documenting, talking, speaking, coming out, because if people saw us as a droves, oh my gosh, look at all of these people. But generally, because our families reject us, eventually they'll accept you. But because they reject us, so they stay Catholic, and you're the only one that comes back, and all of this kind of thing continues to happen, then we're not coming back like the Russian Jews with all of these suitcases and everything. No, we're coming back one by one. So it's very hard in the plethora of the Jewish world to see one by one.
And you did mention that there are those unique like you who had the matrilineal descent all the way back. Most people wouldn't, even if they had it, wouldn't be able to prove it. And you yourself, as we all saw in the movie, did convert. So why did you have to convert? I know it's in the movie, but we're going to say it again.
Okay, so I converted because I didn't know I didn't know I had these roots. I felt a tug, a pull. Everybody saw it in the movie. I felt something was wrong. I was attracted to the Jewish people. I was attracted to the Jewish nation. It was just happening the whole time. And when I was able to, actually with my two children, Cuban Catholic man and all of this kind of thing. But when I was finally able to, let's say, mature enough to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I didn't anticipate such a huge blowout of my life. Like, I didn't expect my life to explode the way it did, but I was ready for it. So I converted. Now, but I still, when I learned from the grandmother, the jewelry, everybody saw the movie, that I really was Jewish, then, because I didn't convert the kids, then I really wanted to prove it for myself that I wasn't crazy. That doesn't, eradicate the fact that I may be, but, I just wanted to, it had been so long from a child and just going on and on that I decided to, pursue the actual finding. Maybe I wouldn't have found it, but I did.
Yeah. And so people still do have to convert, many people, because they're not able to trace it back exactly. So I don't want people to think that just because you think you're Jewish or you have this Jewish connection, you don't have to convert. There is the thing, if you can prove the matrilineal descent like you did, you were told you wouldn't have had to. Is that correct?
Actually, I was told by the Jewish court in Israel that I was born Jewish. So I think there's a difference. I would have had to make a like symbolic conversion, but it wouldn't have had to be these years and years and years of study. In retrospect, I through the years, this was more than 35 years ago now, I see it that I needed that detox, to use the word detox, because it wasn't a detox because of the religion so much, but a detox from the culture. It took me a very, very long time to not walk by a twinkling Christmas tree and go, that kind of thing. So, even today, so many years later, I still walk by a Christmas tree and go, ah. So, it was that kind of thing. And then the holidays that we celebrate, being Hispanic, celebrating Nochebuena, which is the 24th, and Easter Sunday. So it's a blowout culturally. So I kind of needed those 5 years that it took me.
That makes sense. I mean, and then you you said that you felt that you wanted to come back to Judaism, but you've talked a lot about feeling in your bones also the connection to your past. And that's just something, and sense of smell and sense your senses connecting to your past. I just want you to repeat that for a moment, if that's okay.
So I felt deeper than I just want to convert. I mean, I I disrupted, I got a divorce, I had two children. You met them as adults, but you heard them in the movie as children. That kind of shocked me when I saw the taping that the director had done with my children. It took me a long time. I had to hear it many times because I just sat back and said, oh my gosh, they're talking like children. You took away my Christmas tree. You took away my Pop Tarts. You took, they spoke for an hour, so you just saw a little bit. They took away my Pop Tarts. They never verbalized that to me. So they filmed them for the movie. So that was kind of like, I did it because I just sensed that there was something more. I sensed that these grandmothers were just tugging at me. I didn't know them to be the grandmothers yet. Just something was just pulling me inside to find the truth and to verbalize the truth. In retrospect, I see that maybe the grandmothers got to the point where they found somebody who had a, big enough mouth that could talk.
A big
And
passion. Let's not say big
well,
passion.
but that had, because there's many people that walk through our lives family wise, and maybe that found the person that could bring this out to the open.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. And Raleigh's asking, have any of your family members been similarly inclined toward Judaism since you documented your family's connection, even following the movie? We know during the movie we saw that they weren't.
Correct. So my son, um, he has been the one that has been the most actively not following Judaism, but he put his daughter, she's adopted, so it's the only actual lineage that's going to follow me is the little one, the who is now 4. You saw her at the beginning of when my daughter spoke, because my 11-year-old, she's adopted, but when she was little, my son put her at the JCC school he lives up in the north. And it didn't make sense for them because they're not following the Jewish religion. But he always, if you ask him what is his religion, he will say, I'm Catholic and an ancestral Jew. He kind of coined this term of ancestral Jew. My daughter is really goes more, I'm a Catholic, let's say. So as far as anybody returning, no, but the respect is there 100%, both at my daughter's house and at my son's house, and an extent, not anymore, but at my sister's house, pots and pans. And I'm traditional, I'm Orthodox, so the pots and the pans and it's all there. So when I visit, I'm cooking my stuff on my own pots and pans, and there's like a whole big respect with that. But physically returning, I didn't put it in the movie. Very hard for me to talk about. But in 2014, my mom told me she wanted to speak to my rabbi. And my mom had really given me a hard time. I mean, if anybody had given me a hard time about this, it was my mom. And I said to Michael, my husband, I said, I can't do this. I literally cannot take mom to see the rabbi. I just can't handle it. And so Michael took her. And he sat with her as she spoke to the rabbi. She was 86. And she told him that she did not want to die Catholic. And this was a big shock on the family. My mom has since died, but this was a big shock. So he told her she had to do one mitzvah. And because of the paper and document they had given me in Israel that my whole family was Jewish maternally. Mom was a Jew, but had to take it on. Like you can't just, it's a gift, but you have to take it on. So from my work, she was deemed Jewish, and so she lit candles with me that night, and then I came home afterwards. And then on Sunday, it was a Friday night. On Sunday, she went into a deep, deep Alzheimer's, and she never came out of it for 7 years. And, so she died in 2021, and she died as a Jew. But she was never able to tell me her reasons. Alzheimer, that was the last conscious act that she did. So as far as the family returning, mom waited till the nth moment. And, for whatever reason, she must have known and didn't do anything till the nth moment.
I'm
So
gonna
I
let you
didn't want to
take.
put that in the movie because I don't always want to talk about this. This is an intimate group, but I don't always want to talk about this. I have a really hard time. I remember the day, I remember the moment it happened, and it's really painful. So, but that's why it's not in the movie, so people wouldn't miss me.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I know you need a minute after that. So I'm going to
Yeah.
read some comments while you take a moment. A very poignant documentary, and Mrs. Milgrom knew how to share all the emotion that we feel. Congratulations.
Thank
Yes,
you.
it is a feeling that something is not right. I felt like I was adopted. Very funny because I look like my parents. But it's this feeling of not belonging and yet belonging. My husband, myself, and our children are the only ones in our family who are returning. And true, the pull is unexplainable. And we keep hearing that with people with the certificate is they just know. And there's this thing where I can just, people just know, and it's a feeling inside. So somebody asked, what do you do when you have some traditions that you know are Jewish adjacent and there's no documents there that you don't know what do you do to show that you have this connection that you know is in there?
So there's always documents. Let me just start with that. It's just like here in the States, you have state documents and you have federal documents. So for example, in other countries, because maybe we're talking, so there's always a document. It doesn't matter that the church, for example, burned down if you were brought up Catholic. Because the marriage or maybe not the baptism, but the marriage would have been recorded on a federal level, let's say. That's the same thing in every single country. There's census records, there's notary deeds, there's a whole slew of documentation that can be had. So it is just a matter if you can always convert. And I suggest to people that want to join the Jewish people from a religious point of view, because there's obviously, you can join the Jewish people from a traditional point of view, from a cultural point of view. You don't necessarily have to join the Jewish people from a religious point of view. And even if it is religious, there's so many different levels. You can do Reconstructionist, Reform, Conservative. I decided to do the whole thing. Being Orthodox felt comfortable for me because I was brought up, and as you could see in the movie, in a more or less Orthodox Catholic environment. So it kind of, that jacket kind of fit nicely. So basically, if you want to join the Jewish people and be part of the cultural heritage, you can go to a reform, you can go and start going to events and see how that shirt fits. And if you want to find your lineage, I wrote a book, How I Found My 15 Grandmothers. You can look up there. You can see a myriad of YouTubes that I've done that, and my database, more than 85,000 names to follow the Converso diasporas. So there's a lot of things you can do. And the hardest is that first step, which is, you can start watching YouTubes of, let's say, different celebrations that are not religious at a synagogue, the Purim celebration, Tu B'Shvat, so many other things that are going on. So you can ease into this if you feel it.
Right. And one of the things that we promote in the certificate, I know we're going beyond the movie into the certificate, but that's our joint venture there. So, is that you don't have to accept Judaism, but you can understand that that's your heritage. And I loved that your son's the Sephardic ancestry, Jewish ancestry. What did he say?
Oh, what does he call ancestral Jew?
As ancestral Jew. I think that's going
I'm
to
an
be our new
ancestral
thing. I'm
Jew.
gonna because that's really what we're talking about here. It's very hard to prove what you proved. And so one of the things that was asked is, what are some of the hints that we can look for when looking at documents? And I think one of the things is through your book, that's what you can see. And you
Right,
have,
there are a lot of hints because I did have a genealogist go in Spain, look through everything, but he didn't prove I was a Jew. I looked through the records. You have to look under the records. Our ancestors were hiding. So, for example, when I got to like 1600, it kept saying that the babies weren't baptized because they were too ill to go to the church. Nobody died because I kept following the family. Every single baby lived. So, what they weren't doing was going to the church. So, there was a term for that. They were baptized bajo necesidad, by necessity, and they would tell the priest that they were baptizing them at home. But they got away because they were Jews not to baptize them at all.
yeah, and you're talking about avoiding the church. One of the things you bring up in the movie is that you and your sister were enrolled in Catholic school, and yet your parents didn't go to church
Never.
regularly.
Not just my grandparents. I mean, so much so that they would, when I graduated from eighth grade, it was in the church. I mean, when you're in a Catholic school, all the things, you graduate in the church. Then in high school, you graduate in the cathedral. And so here's like my whole family standing outside. It was really, and so I know that my own children were worried that I wouldn't be there for them. And I said to them, and when I married Michael, I said, look, um, I come from a background, he comes from a very religious background from Romania, lived in Israel, studied in a yeshiva, in a seminary his whole life. So Michael comes from a Hasidic background and very different from my background. So I said to him, I only have two children. If either of them want to get married in a church, I want to be sure that I will not that we will attend my children's wedding. This was like almost a year before we got married. I said, I don't want this to be that I'm going to worry about this. My daughter was 4. Oh, I'm going to worry about this for the next 30 years. So we agreed. Now, interestingly enough, my son got married in Costa Rica to a very religious Catholic, and they did the wedding in a hotel. The altar was a table. They were so amazing. The priest had a crucifix no bigger than 2 inches on top of the table. Usually it's these, 3 foot
Yeah.
things. And that was amazing. And my daughter got married in a hotel, and she had a minister, and it wasn't Catholic, and there was nothing religious about it. And so, this impacts in a lot of ways. These unions impact. So we waited outside, my sister and I, for the parents, grandparents to come, but they never set foot in the church. So there's all those little clues that are, you read through them.
And you're talking about reading through them in the manuscripts as well. Can you give us, we see in the movie you going to the different archives and in all over the world, and I know you continue to do that and you continue to collect them, and you've done that with the help of the previous pope, and I hope that you'll have some relationship to the new pope as well.
Hope so.
But can you tell us one or two ways that you saw that, well, you gave us one that you saw that they didn't bring them to the baptisms. Can you give us
Okay,
another
the
one
other
or
thing
two?
is that so as Jews, usually, back in the day, there was something done that's called signing Tanaim. And this is like you have a young girl, 13, but you're going to marry her at 18, and her intended is already picked out. So in the oldest, they still do it today, but not like this. You sign like a document that for all intents and purposes already marries you, but you don't actually get married until you're 18 or 19. And there was a lot of these signing this document in Spanish, this tenaim. I don't know how to say it in Spanish, but there was a lot of signing of these documents in Spain and Portugal where you would see that the girl was betrothed, that is the word, at like 14, and then they married at like 18. And that was unusual, an unusual custom in Catholic. You didn't do that. So that's another way. There's many ways, but that's another way. Also, my family followed what is known as the Sephardic naming. So Ashkenaz Jews would never give a child the name of a person that's alive. It's just not done. It's a bad luck thing. If the person ends up being a mass murderer or is a terrible person or whatever, you don't do it. But the Sephardim do. And there is you can look this up. There's an actual Sephardic naming system where the first child takes the name of this one and the second child, whether they're alive, even while the family members are alive. So my family followed a lot of this Sephardic naming system. These are things that I had to figure out. There was no manual. I was the first or second person that ever did this. And back to the Pope. This picture, can they see this big drawer, or they just see the little one?
We
I
we
don't know
don't
if
see you at all. We don't see it at all. You have to share.
you don't see the picture behind me?
Oh, of the archives? Yes, sorry.
Right, can they see
We
it big?
see,
So
yes.
this is the entrance to the Vatican secret archives. So yes, Pope Francis was amazing. I wanted Inquisition records from the New World, from Colombia and Ecuador and all this. He agreed to help me. Michael and I went back and back and back into the archives, and very difficult to find what I was looking at. They have 153 miles long, 14 miles high. I worked with the archivist there. And now I don't know with, Pope Leo, but as far as the mandate to help me find this, it ended with Pope Francis. So I don't know what I'll find with Pope Leo. I have not scheduled a trip yet, but I'm constantly uploading data.
Yeah, and you still have quite a bunch left. You've answered two of the questions that Judy sent in, but I'm going to also ask, did Pope Francis ever appoint the emissaries that he said he would for the reluctant countries who
No,
hadn't?
because we decided, I worked with someone that he, actually Rabbi Hoffman, I'm sorry, Father Hoffman, and Pope Francis said to me, "This is my rabbi," and I thought that was kind of cute. But he was a priest, but German. His name was Hoffman, and so I worked with him, and he let me out. And the group figured that it was easier to try to find first what I needed within the Vatican archives. And then I worked directly with all the other archives, and we did get all of Portugal digitized, and Mexico is up. And that was not part, that was, Mexico was needed to be digitized, but they didn't accept my offer. A DNA company financed this. They didn't accept my offer, but I harassed him so much, he did it himself. So they're up on the website.
And it saves us time and money and everything. Um,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm sure you get these all the time, but I love hearing them, so I'm going to read it. In my early 20s, I started feeling that I may be Jewish. Over the years, I dated a handful of Jewish men. It wasn't until my late 50s that I finally found out I had Sephardic ancestry. So I just love hearing those. I know we hear them all the time, but to me, it's,
Fantastic.
and please, I encourage you to continue to write your questions. Just so you know, I am reading the questions from the Q&A and from the chat and interweaving them.
So I
And
just want to say a couple of things from the movie, if that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
so there was a very quick scene that you saw that was sheep herders, and they were bagpipers, and you just saw it kind of quick going down that scene. So when my when I was little, my grandma or my grandparents spoke a language to each other that was not Ladino, that was not Spanish, that was not Portuguese. You saw that the village of my ancestors was right between Spain and Portugal. My grandparents, first cousins, every single marriage in my family is of a first cousin, not a second cousin, not a third cousin, except my parents. But going back, everyone was a first cousin. So they used to speak a language that is an ancient Portuguese language. The name's eluding me right now, but it's Mirandês. It's actually the third language of Portugal right now, but very few people speak it. My grandfather used to sing to me in Mirandés when I was a baby in Cuba and continued when I was 6, 7 years old. So I was in search of Mirandés speakers to bring them into the movie, and I found these bagpipers that only sing in Mirandés. So we climbed, they couldn't get it into the movie, but there is on the site of Between the Stone and the Flower, I do have a trailer of just these bagpipers. So we climbed this mountain. I thought it was my death for sure. I mean, I'm not a hiker, I'm not a climber. But we did it, and there was so much wind, but they started playing, and the elder bagpiper sang to me a song called La Pastorica, little shepherd girl. And his face and my grandfather's were just transposing over there. And you can see I easily cry. So imagine on top of that, I'm like bawling on the top of this mountain. And I think for me, that was the most special and the tenderest moment of the movie, and unfortunately did not get captured.
So thank you for sharing that. That one I had forgotten about. And also,
So people
it,
should look up Mirandés, because that is, very few people. And I saw Rabbi Pereira's here, and so I'm sure he knows about Mirandés. And I think, I don't know, like probably 12 people, the bagpiper family are probably the only people. No, I think it's 15% of the elder population, and they're trying to keep it alive like they do with Yiddish. So they're now starting to teach Mirandés in the 7th grade.
and we saw in the movie also that you went back to your ancestral home, the physical homes. Can you tell us a little bit about what
You mean
you
in
saw there?
Hermosillo or?
You tell me.
So I did go back to many of the ancestral homes because the family lived there. I had like 8, 10 addresses. So I did go back to the place where my mom was taken, where she used to live on the 3rd floor. Today it is a Red Cross, and my mom lived on the 3rd floor, and I actually saw her bed up there, which was just amazing. I mean, so my mom lived there maybe in 1929, and they still had her little bed with the little flowers painted in a ruffle. I've been into many of the ancestral homes over there. And I think in the movie they show several of I did not go to Cuba. The director, I mean, yes, he went to Cuba and he filmed everything along with some of our ancestral homes there. But in Spain, I did go back to where my mom had lived, my great grandfather.
Right in the gardens in one of the homes.
Oh, you mean that was my dad's side.
Okay.
So that was in Cordova. I went into Fermosella. That's why I kind of was confused, because in Fermosella, I went there, but it wasn't in the movie. So I'm saying, how to draw it now. So yes, so that grandfather was paternal. And after I finished with mom, and my dad kept telling me, I'm more Jewish than your mom. I don't know why you keep looking for your mom. And my dad was always a lot more accepting, a lot more open, a lot more, I'm so happy. My dad's big thing was, I'm so happy you have religion in your life, because we can't go through life without God. And this is what he was telling me, because I had become irreligious for so many years because of this dichotomy in my whole thinking. So I went back to this Sigler de Pinosa castle, and I had asked for the room of his room there. So they gave us a room, and I had been asking and begging them, I want to stay in his room. And it was like a set of rooms. And Michael and I get there, and so Michael says, you're finally in his room, and I'm like, I'm so scared. I don't know if he's gonna pop out in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden he's like, you've been trying to do this for like a half a year, begging people, and now you're scared. I said, can we just open the window? Because they kind of just like shut and you couldn't see anything. So can we just kind of open the window? So it was kind of neat to be in the home of I believe it was my 17th grandfather on my dad's side.
And that's
So there
incredible. And
was
we see,
Jews everywhere. There was Jews everywhere. I have gone back 28 lines, going back to Nantes, France, going all the way back. As a matter of fact, in December, early December, Michael and I are taking an ancestral trip into all the villages in France, in the south of France, where my family was from.
interesting. Is that another movie coming up? Just putting it out there. But maybe it's another book. Because
It probably will be another book.
I do want to mention that quite a bit of what Jeannie does is also connecting through the senses to the heritage, and that's why you have your cookbooks out there. And can you tell us, the salsa book is wonderful, but tell us a little bit about the cookbook from your grandmothers.
So I always asked mom if she had any documents, and she was really not happy. I don't think mom was not anti-Semitic. I do believe that mom was a socialite, and in her Cuban socialite, very closed circle, and after a certain age, she just didn't want to be different. Her little suits, go to lunch, have, play canasta, have teas. That was mom's world, and I was crashing it. And it took me a long time to understand that. I thought it was but anyway, so I always asked mom if she had any documents, and she said, no, I don't have anything. I know you wish I had documents with little Hebrew letters written on the corner, but I don't. Okay. So when mom died and we go into the house, and again, this was 2021, this is not like a million years ago. And we go into the house and I'm sitting in the kitchen floor, opening up. She had like these drawers. I'm opening up the drawers. And the first thing I see is the originals of many of the documents that took me years and a fortune that I paid to get the documents. And I just sat there and looked at the birth certificates, the death certificates, and marriage certificates of the grandmothers. And I'm like, somebody had already done this work and had hidden it, and it was in the kitchen drawer. And more than that, it came from Spain to Portugal to, Spain to Portugal, the diaspora. They went to Cartagena, Colombia. From Cartagena, Colombia, they went to Cuba and Costa Rica, the Canary Islands, Cartagena. I mean, the whole diaspora and the grandmothers. And I could see snippets of paper written by hand, and the same recipe again and again with the ingredients changing as they went through the diaspora. The ingredients changed from let's say an almond liquor to a fig liquor in Costa Rica to rum and an orange liquor in Cuba. And it blew my mind that all of those recipes were there, that the documents were there. And so there was things like Maimonides cake. There was the Sabbath stew recipe. There was an Inquisition recipe of a French toast in the shape of a pork chop. And he's like, I can't believe that all of this was here. And then I remember I hadn't yet told Michael. It was just me and him in my mom's big rambling house, and I'm sitting there, and I said, before I like open this to the world, because telling Michael to me is opening it to the world, I said, you know what? I have a choice. I can resent my mother. She's just died. I can resent her for the rest of my natural life, or I can thank her for making me have to look for this on my own, because on my own, I own it. And I decided to own it. And then I wrote the book, published in Israel, the recipes of my 15 grandmothers. Each recipe has this, it's on Amazon. Each recipe has this amazing story to it as it carried through countries and generations that from the grandmothers.
Yeah, and it's incredible your story and others as well, just your grandmother leaving you the jewelry
The
when she
jewelry.
died. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows the story, so I don't want to go into the details because it's all in the movie. Just because there have been two questions already, I want to make sure that those who have not yet seen the film, will be open until tomorrow at what time?
I'm not sure, probably midnight, right? I
Okay.
guess.
Okay,
I'm
I
not
don't know,
sure.
because you said it's closing tomorrow, so
Right.
so you can watch it until tomorrow at midnight. It did come in every confirmation email that you got. There is the link to the movie in it. So please make sure you see it. If not, send me an email afterwards, but it is in every confirmation email that you did receive. So, people get excited about when you bring up new things. Which villages in the south of France? Her last name is Apter,
So,
that's what I'm asking.
right, so, north of Colmar, a little bit north of Colmar, there are three little villages that are together. There's actually a Jewish house called the Blue House that has some memorabilia of the time. The Jews were thrown out of France. I believe it was in before 1254. So I'm going back even further, but I have all the documents. So I'm going to, with the help of the people in this Blue House, be able to navigate that whole area. Also, up in the area of Nantes, France, and just basically all around. And these were the French names. The family was Audrain and Luçon. And the last time Michael and I were in Paris, I searched down it was a grandfather last name, Antoine Luçon. And I read that he was a glassmaker, very Jewish trade, and he had made all the windows of the big synagogue of La Victoire in Paris. So Michael and I went to La Victoire, and they were hosting international guests on that day. And he said, "You can't come in, you can't come in." And I'm pointing to the windows. I said, "But, like my fifth grandfather did those." So they brought me in and they gave me books about his work. So it was Antoine Luçon, big glassmaker. And I was able to see his work firsthand. So I have like this whole French side that from my maternal grandmother.
I'm sorry, I'm just helping somebody with the thing. So again, these stories come up as we're talking. My grandmother always checked her eggs for blood, but she always said it was because the blood disgusted her. I remember this even before I had any clue of Jewish ancestry, and the only wine she drank was Manischewitz. That's interesting.
I think that we're the only culture that doesn't eat the blood. I don't know that there's other cultures, but for sure we don't eat the blood, and that's a biggie. The blood is a biggie. It was fun all the grandmothers were portrayed by either cousins, the one that was in Spain and Portugal, or that found this ancestry because of my finding it. And and the ones here, which were just my girlfriends, which really had a great time doing it.
Yeah, it's an incredible concept when you think about it, because we're sitting here talking about you finding your roots and everything, but you're thinking that your family was detached or at least adjacent for over 500 years.
Right.
And it's an incredible concept to me. And I know that it is to you as well, because you talk about it all the time, and yet you still have this connection. Um, I'm not sure if
I
that's
have
a
a very
question
deep
or.
connection to the grandmothers. When I light, I think now I light 12 candles on Shabbat. We have an obligation to light a minimum of two, but there are certain situations you can light as many as you want. Usually, as Jewish women, we take on, for example, if a new baby's born, or something special in your life. So and once you start lighting, you can't go back, meaning you can't light 12 and then the next time don't light any. So I light 12. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that it takes me a long time to light the 12 candles. And I start seeing this buildup of these little women around me, old women, older women, wearing like black, because once you widowed in the Spanish culture, you would wear black for life. And I close my eyes and I see all those little grandmothers around me. And it's just such an incredible feeling. And I don't think that there's been one time that I have lit candles that I don't feel surrounded by my ancestors.
I'm going to pause there for a moment. Yeah, so moving, as somebody just said. It is. It just it takes your breath
And
away
by the way,
almost.
one of the other reasons I made the movie, back to your first question, it exhausts me to talk about this because it's so emotional. I kind of just want to, not talk about it. So I figured, okay, I'll make a movie. It's all in there, and then I don't have to talk about it again.
No,
But
maybe.
it's important because there's a lot of in and outs, and you're looking at a movie and you wonder, can this really be for real? And yes, this is really for real.
Right. There we have the person sitting in front of us who has this
And
connection.
I am a descendant, now it's been 614 years. Um, and 614 years, I saw the exact moment in the documents. It was 1640 when my family stopped getting caught in the Inquisition. So they were caught from like 1480 until 1640. Now, why is that significant? To me, it said, you know what? That's it. They stayed Christian. In other words, when they were still making Hall Underground and doing all this kind of stuff, that's one thing, they were being caught. But the minute that no one was caught, no one was killed anymore, and no one was burned, and it was all like, let's say in the documents, I could see this peacefulness. That was it. That was it. So they went under and they went up in 1640 as Christians, as Catholics, not Christian, they were Catholics. And then that was it until today, till today.
Well, or previous, as everybody ha seems to have had some type of a connection, some type of a it's incredible when you think about the underlying. And I encourage people, I know that we have people here that are connecting to their heritage. And
Good.
I really want to encourage everybody in our audience as well. Share your stories, share them with us. We're happy to share them further. Part of the idea of the certificate is to make sure people felt that there is a connection. Part of a lot of the reason for the movie, I believe, is also to allow people to understand they're not alone, that it's not just them, that it's not something strange. It's a part of who we are, and we need to understand that we have this connection. So I think this movie was so important. I think your certificate program is so important. And the senses are important. So the cookbooks are as well. I mean, we're just putting it all in there. You look like
Oh,
you're going to
thank you
say
so
something.
much. We see here Georgina, she loves her certificate. And I will tell you how, real quick, how the birth of the certificate came. So for Kulanu, I work as their director of Anusim in Latin America. And Michael and I spend and teach many, many weeks in Latin America, in the different communities. And these people are serious. They have all converted. They feel, some of them feel they've had these roots, not all of them. They struggle and nobody accepts them, and they lose their jobs. They sleep on the floor on Shabbat. I mean, the one community in Armenia, El Salvador, that you saw the young man speaking, the second one, those people, that's 300 people in that community with about 80 children. And those children, when he says the children are the future, he's not kidding. He brings in people that are teaching these children can read and write in Hebrew and can pray. So but nobody accepts them. There is an organization that sells kosher meat in Costa Rica, won't sell it to them because they don't think they're real Jews. And my heart was breaking. So that's when I came to Drora and I said, is there anything we can do if they prove to us via the Sephardic ancestry certificate that they have Sephardic ancestry? Because they won't, it will be such a proud moment for them to take this certificate and hang it on the wall. And that is what this certificate has done. We review hundreds of these. Georgina who is on the chat here, Georgina, Dora, myself, and other people on the panel, we review these certificates. And sometimes, like I'm traveling, I'm on vacation, and I open the door and I open my email, and Dora I just got on the plane, and she has sent about 40 genealogies for us to review. And and it's so many. And then the next day she sends another 40. And, both Georgina and I and the other couple people were like, trying to get this done, and we do it with love. And, that's all I can say. Take a look at my website. You're going to love it. It's for free. You can prance around in there all you want. Nobody will know you're in there. And just take a look. So there's a button that's not on the regular search called Viajes a Indias. And this is probably the most important button on there. And that is the ship's manifest of everybody that left from 1534 till I believe I finished uploading till 16 something, left a Spanish port to a Spanish port. They're not necessarily Jews, but I don't know if they're Jews or not, because obviously they were hidden. They weren't supposed to travel, but they did. So if you go in there and let's say your family name, I don't know, let's say that you live in Montevideo, Uruguay, and let's say that your family name was Ramos, and you start seeing, so you can trace, and it might have the Ramos family coming from Sevilla, and it'll give you a way to start searching back. So that's why that is uploaded. That's there's 10 volumes. I've only gotten 4 up. I literally digitize day and night.
Somebody just asked what the website is. So as we're winding down, I'm going to give a few details. This is the Ancestor website where you can look
If you keep
through.
going down, I think we'll see that button called, here it is. Yeah, it's so much data. Stop right there. Viaje a Indias, the names A through M and N through Z. There's literally, I believe, in that database alone, I believe there's like 8 or 9,000 names where you
7,000.
can look it up. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is all open. The goal of this is to encourage people to connect to their heritage and to connect to their ancestral Judaism. I'm going to use this. We're using this. And thank you, Georgina, for typing it into the chat as well. There's one more question. I kind of wanted to, it's okay. Can we end with a logistic question? Because the
Sure.
question is, what villages in Portugal was your family connected to? And I think it's mostly in the movie, but if you want to just highlight 2 or 3
Yeah,
that
sure,
might.
no problem. So my family's diaspora went from Fermoselle, and then they escaped and they went to Miranda, and then they went to Miranda do Douro, and they went to Mogadauro. In Mogadauro, they married into the Mogadauro family, which was Mogadauro Mendez, very large, important family. From there, they went up to Alcañices, which at the time was on the Portuguese side. Now it's on the Spanish side. And they were part of 200 families that are recorded that were the guilds, the traders, the furriers, the leather people. And that was my family, one of those. And from there, they went to Bragança. And from Bragança, then they started going into all parts of Portugal. But the strength of them were in Alcañices, Mogadauro, Miranda do Douro, and all those areas there.
Thank you. Is there one last thing you want to say before we sign off that you need
No, I
people to
really
know?
appreciate everybody being here. You can contact me via my website and entry, you can send me an email. I get hundreds of emails all the time. If you want to pursue a particular conversation further, I generally, because I travel so much, I'm leaving and I'm traveling for a month in 2 or 3 days. So because I travel so much, I generally prefer. A lot of people want to speak, but it's harder. I'm on an airplane, I'm on a train, boat, plane. So it's just easier, and I will answer your emails, and just email me via my website.
Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you, Georgina, for putting things in the chat. Been very helpful. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you continue to stay in touch. Please do send your stories. I think it's so important to get it out there this Jeannie started us. Let's continue it. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.